Welcome to the Hoja on Architecture podcast. The Architecture of the Myth, Chapter 5, Sea versus Land, Fluid and Stable Civilizations. In the previous chapter, we descended from Olympus to Athens and explored how a myth could become a city. Through the contest between Athena and Poseidon, Athens chose cultivation over force, stability over volatility. The olive tree became the symbol of rooted civilization. Yet the story of Greek spatial imagination cannot remain entirely on land. Beyond the rocky hills of Attica stretches a very different world, the Aegean Sea, a landscape defined not by stability but by movement. The Greek world has always existed between these two spatial conditions, land and sea. Mountains divide the mainland into small territories, while the sea connects them into networks. Unlike the vast plains of continental empires, the geography of Greece encourages fragmentation. Valleys isolate communities. Coastlines invite departure. The result is a civilization constantly negotiating between rooted settlement and maritime mobility. Land anchors identity, but the sea expands possibility. For the Greeks, the sea was never simply a body of water. It was an infrastructure of connection. Ships traveled between islands and coastal cities, carrying goods, stories, and ideas. Ports became gateways through which cultures encountered one another. In this fluid landscape, geography itself becomes architecture. Routes replace walls, harbors replace gates, networks replace boundaries. The sea functions as a vast spatial system through which the Greek world communicates with itself. This maritime condition profoundly shaped Greek mythology. Many of its most famous narratives unfold not in cities but across waters. The journey of Odysseus, the voyage of the Argonauts, the wanderings of countless heroes, all reveal a civilization whose imagination moves across islands, currents, and uncertain horizons. If Athens symbolizes rooted urban identity, the sea symbolizes adventure, unpredictability, and transformation. Poseidon, the god of the sea, embodies this restless spatial condition. Unlike Athena's calm rationality, Poseidon represents volatility. His domain is fluid, shifting, and occasionally destructive. Earthquakes, storms, and tidal forces remind humans that the sea cannot be fully controlled. Yet the Greeks never rejected this instability entirely. Instead, they learned to navigate it. The sea became a space of opportunity precisely because it resisted permanence. In architectural terms, land and sea generate very different spatial logics. On land, architecture produces stability. Buildings anchor communities to specific locations. Streets organize movement within defined boundaries. Cities develop layers of memory that accumulate over generations. The built environment reinforces continuity. At sea, however, space behaves differently. There are no fixed streets, no permanent landmarks beyond the stars and distant coastlines. Navigation replaces orientation. Movement replaces settlement. Instead of buildings, the vessel becomes the primary architectural object. A ship is a moving piece of architecture designed not to remain, but to travel. The ship therefore becomes one of the earliest examples of mobile architecture. It contains structure, hierarchy, and functional organization within a confined space. Decks separate activities, cabins define private and collective zones, and the hull itself becomes a protective envelope against the surrounding environment. In this sense, the ship is a temporary city, a floating microcosm navigating an unstable world. Greek myth repeatedly returns to this image. The ship Argo, carrying Jason and the Argonauts in search of the Golden Fleece, becomes a vessel not only for travel, but for transformation. Heroes depart from familiar landscapes and return changed by their encounters with distant places. The sea enables these journeys precisely because it resists fixed boundaries. Movement becomes the narrative. In contrast, land generates permanence. Agricultural cycles reinforce settlement. Terraces, farms, and olive groves slowly but steadily reshape the terrain. Architecture on land grows through accumulation, stone upon stone, generation upon generation. Stability encourages institutions, laws, and civic structures. The tension between land and sea therefore mirrors a deeper cultural duality. One side represents continuity and rooted identity. The other represents exploration and exchange. Greek civilization emerges from the dynamic balance between these two forces. Cities remain grounded in place, but their horizons extend across water. This balance explains the remarkable spread of Greek culture throughout the Mediterranean. Colonies appear along distant coastlines not as isolated settlements, but as nodes within maritime networks. From Sicily to Asia Minor, Greek cities replicate familiar spatial patterns while remaining connected through trade routes and shared mythology. The sea becomes the connective tissue of a dispersed civilization. Architecture participates in this maritime world as well. Coastal cities orient themselves toward harbors. Fortifications protect ports as much as inland territories. Temples often face the sea, greeting arriving ships with monumental silhouettes. A city's skyline is its introduction to travelers approaching by water. In this way, architecture becomes visible from afar. The sea transforms buildings into signals. Lighthouses, temples, and harbor structures guide sailors toward safe entry points. The port becomes a threshold where fluid and stable worlds meet. Ships arrive from uncertain waters and anchor within protected basins. Land absorbs the instability of the sea and converts it into exchange. Thresholds become essential spaces in maritime cultures. This may be why Greek myth frequently situates dramatic moments at coastlines. The shore is neither entirely land nor entirely sea. It is a boundary where different spatial logics meet. Heroes depart from these edges, and they often return to them after journeys that test their resilience. The coastline becomes a stage for transformation. Seen from this perspective, the Greek world is neither purely terrestrial nor purely maritime. It is a civilization constantly negotiating between stability and movement. Land provides identity, while the sea offers expansion. One anchors culture, the other circulates it. Greek spatial imagination, therefore, operates in two registers simultaneously. Cities cultivate permanence through architecture, while maritime routes cultivate exchange through navigation. Together, they produce a civilization uniquely adapted to a fragmented geography. Even today, the Aegean retains this dual character. Islands appear isolated when viewed on a map, yet they remain deeply connected through centuries of maritime movement. The sea that separates them also binds them into a shared cultural landscape. Perhaps the most remarkable lesson of Greek spatial thinking is that stability and mobility do not entirely oppose each other. Instead, they form a productive tension. Civilizations require both roots and roots, places to belong and pathways to explore. Land provides the ground, and the sea provides the horizon. In the next chapter, we will move away from open horizons and into a very different spatial condition, the underworld. Because if the sea represents fluid movement across the surface of the earth, Greek mythology also imagines a hidden architecture beneath it, a realm of thresholds, passages, and irreversible transitions. This concludes Chapter 5 of The Architecture of the Myth, Sea versus Land, Fluid and Stable Civilizations. Thanks for listening. See you in the next episode.